it on? Yeah, you should. There it is. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. So this is our 1:30 presentation. Public safety, we're going to be talking about today. Some tips for surviving a fire, which I'm going to handle. My name is Len Dolan. I'm the Director of Fire Safety here. And following me is going to be Lieutenant Mike Gorman from Kane PD, and he's going to talk about some updates, if any, on the active shooter situations. So to start out, if you've attended some of my, or you've attended my previous professional development, I talked about situational awareness. This is kind of a follow-up to that in the sense that we need to also obviously use situational awareness in a fire situation, meaning we need to have an idea ahead of time what we're going to do should a fire occur either in our workplace or in our home, and how can we best plan to survive the fire situation, get out safely. Statistically, you are much more at risk to be injured or killed in a fire in your home than you are in the workplace. There are about somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 fatalities annually in the United States, about 15,000 injuries, and over 70% of those occur in the home. In 2015, the last year we had statistics available for New Jersey, there were 77 deaths and 260 injuries. So in the past I've talked about, fire safety here at Kane, and I've, expressed the fact that all of our buildings here are what are considered non-combustible buildings. The buildings don't burn. They're made of concrete and steel. It's the contents that are going to burn. But in addition to the non-combustibility of the buildings, most of our contents in all of our buildings meet a stricter standard for flammability and smoke development than the furniture and the furnishings that you have in your home. So while the contents in the buildings at Kane are combustible, they are not as readily combustible, and they don't generate the volume of smoke as quickly as the contents of your home will. So from that perspective, and then add on to that a lot of the buildings here on campus are sprinklered, and every building on campus has a fire alarm system. The work environment here is actually a very safe place to be. In your home, again, a little bit different story. The contents are going to be more combustible, more flammable. There's going to be a more rapid generation of smoke should they catch fire. You most likely don't have a sprinkler system in your home. If you live in a newer building or apartment building, you may have what they call a residential sprinkler system, but those buildings are typically in the minority in the state of New Jersey. State's been trying to get, the interest groups have been trying to get legislation passed mandating residential sprinklers, but every time it makes its way to the governor's desk, it gets vetoed, and obviously that's all about lobbying and stuff. Ironically, and they always argue cost, increasing the cost of construction. Residential sprinkler systems are put in with plastic pipe, and to install a residential sprinkler system, you're probably adding somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 to the total cost of the building, which is next to nothing in New Jersey these days. So it's really not an expense issue, although that's what's argued, and as a result, we've been unable to get legislation passed mandating residential sprinklers in new construction, so we don't have that. Point being is that, again, you're much safer in your work environment than in your home environment from a statistical perspective. What I want to do now is just show you a brief video, and this is to give you the opportunity to see how quickly a fire can develop. Okay, obviously there's a lot of factors, there's a lot of variables that go into how fast a fire spreads, but I'm sure you've all seen over the years television accounts of people reporting a fire, and a lot of the time you hear them say, it was amazing how fast the fire spread, all of a sudden the whole building was on fire, comments to that effect. Fire can generate and grow in size exponentially, but it requires, obviously a lot of factors to be, in the right, lined up properly. You have to have a proper geometry for the space. A smaller space is going to be engulfed in flame much more quickly. The fire is going to develop much more quickly. You have to have the proper types of flammable material. You got to have the material in the right form. You know, obviously big solid products don't burn as quickly as stuff that's lighter and has a lot more surface area. So there's a lot of factors that come into play, but the point is that a fire can grow very quickly, and the result to you as an occupant is that you can become quickly trapped in the fire. And the whole idea of this presentation is to give you some concepts and some things that you can do to protect yourself should you be caught in a fire situation. So we're going to take a look at this short video. What I want you to just notice is just how quickly the fire will develop. There'll be a little elapsed time counter on the bottom right of the screen, and you're eventually going to see the room become fully engulfed in flame. And just notice the short period of time that it takes for that to happen. There's something happened to my video here. All right, so in about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, that room was fully engulfed in flame. And understand that not every fire is going to develop that quickly. As I said, there's a lot of variables that go into play. It's possible for a fire to start and self-extinguish just because it doesn't have the right conditions. All right, but it is also possible that it can develop very quickly and, you know, trap you or, you know, trap somebody in that space or in that area. You have no way to know how fast the fire is going to develop. You have no way to know whether or not the conditions are just right that that's going to cause that to happen. So you have to assume worst case scenario, that's going to be the case. It's going to be a rapidly developing fire, and I got to get out as quickly as possible. So part of your situational awareness and part of your preparation for how to survive a fire is assume that you have a very short window within which to escape the building, the space that the fire is located in. All right, so that's really what you have to do is plan for that. So the early warning is the most important thing. The sooner we know that we have a fire in a space, the quicker we can get out, and the better our chance of surviving the event. The greatest tool for that is the fire alarm system or the smoke detector. All right, the primary purpose of a smoke detector, although we have them with us, they're in our spaces, they're in our workplace, they're in our homes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the detectors are there. Their primary purpose is to protect you while you're sleeping. Obviously, when you're sleeping, your senses are not as acute. You're less likely to realize there's a fire in the space. So what the detector does is that gives us the early warning when we're asleep. During our waking hours, we have a better chance of spotting the fire even before the detector goes off if we happen to be in the space. If it's an unoccupied space, the detector is going to find the fire and activate its alarm. It's going to trigger a building alarm system if it's connected to one, and then you get a proper emergency response as soon as that happens. But early warning is a critical thing for obvious reasons now, and a fire alarm system, smoke detectors specifically, are the best tool to give us an early warning. With respect to where you should have smoke detectors, again, they're in our workplace and they're located usually in corridors and in an office space. But in the home, all right, as a minimum, you should have one on each level of the home. One in the basement, one on the first floor, one on the second floor, and so on, located in the hallways as you go up through the house. Ideally, and the best protection is to have not only a detector on each level, but also a detector in each bedroom. All right, so one inside the bedroom, just inside the bedroom door, and then one outside in the hallway. The idea for that is that we should all be sleeping with our bedroom doors closed, and that leads me into the concept of compartmentation, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But you sleep with your bedroom door closed. If you have a detector in the hallway and not one in the bedroom, then obviously if there's a fire within the bedroom with the door closed, the detector in the hallway is never going to go off because the smoke is being blocked by the closed door. So it's best to have a detector on both sides of the door and sleep with the door closed. Once the alarm activates, again, time is critical, getting out of the space is critical. The first thing you want to do when you become aware of a fire is, in addition to simultaneously notifying the rest of the people in the space, which means calling out if you're in your home, or activating a fire alarm if you happen to be, in your workplace, is notifying 911. A lot of times, the first reaction for some people is to try and fight the fire. Not a good thing if you haven't notified 911 first, for the obvious reason that you just saw in the video how fast a fire can develop. The time that you spend trying to extinguish the fire, you may find in that delayed time that you're unable to do it, and you've allowed the fire to grow that much more. Then you finally decide, I can't put it out, I got to notify the fire department. There's a response time involved there, and the response time is going to depend upon where you happen to live. If you live in a community that has a paid fire department, they're most likely going to be on the scene as soon as you call 911 within about 3 to 4 minutes, maybe 5 on the high end. If you live in a community that has a volunteer department, there's not somebody in the fire station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All right, so if there's nobody there, they have to come from their home once they receive the notification, man the apparatus, and then drive to the scene. So their response time is going to be longer. If you've delayed notifying them because you tried to fight the fire, you're probably going to have a pretty well-involved building by the time either department, career, or volunteer gets on the scene. So early notification of the emergency service calling 911 should occur as soon as you're aware that a fire has started or a fire may be starting in your home or in your workplace. And again, it's critical, alert all occupants, start getting everybody out of the building, and make sure that you can get them out as quickly as possible. All right, it doesn't show up well on the screen there, but it says at the bottom in red, delay in notification can be fatal. A lot of times that happens. As I said, people try to fight the fire where they thought somebody else called 911, and in fact nobody did, and that ends up in a bad outcome. Evacuate the building. All right, so all buildings and all spaces have 2 ways out. All right, and that's just a code requirement. If a space has less than 2 ways out, then it has a limited number of occupants that are permissible under the code. But we all have 2 ways out of our homes. All right, it may not be a stair. If you sleep on the 2nd floor, you have a stair to the 1st floor and out a door. But if that is not the way that you can get out, then your other option's a window. Okay, so the point is, again, that you usually will always have 2 ways out. You have to identify what they are and make sure that you can use them should it become necessary, a primary and a secondary. Don't waste time gathering pets or personal belongings. A lot of people make that mistake. They want to try and get the family pet. They want to gather belongings. Again, that delays your escape from the fire, and that whole time, you got to remember, we have that elapsed time. You could become trapped by the fire in the time that it takes for you to try and gather personal belongings or try and get a pet. Animals are not always going to react how you would expect them to react in a normal situation. They get scared just like humans do. They may try to hide. They may try, if you're able to get them out of the house, they may run back into the house. I've heard stories of that. I personally had an experience when I was working in my career as a firefighter. We had a fire one night, and there was a dog on the 2nd floor, and the place was pretty full of smoke, and we literally had to chase the dog around the bedroom to try and catch it because it just, was afraid. We were finally able to catch the dog and get it out of the house, but the point is the dog wasn't ready to willingly come with us and come out. And you should assume also that your pet may not want to cooperate 100% with you should you have an emergency. It may be necessary to leave the pet in the house. And again, you have to think about getting yourself and your family out, get out as quickly as you can. Have a meeting place. Usually it's going to be out front, but you want to make sure that if people are coming out of different exits from the building, that they're meeting at a central point so you can take a head count and make sure everybody got out. Wait for the emergency service, the fire department, the police that get on scene. If there's still people or there's still an animal in the building, tell them that when they get on the scene. They're all, the fire department's equipped and trained to go in and search, and they'll do whatever they can to try and get whatever occupants of the building are in out as quickly as possible. Don't re-enter the building. Again, there are plenty of stories over the years of people getting out safely and then going back in and becoming trapped. And the reason for that is that rapid fire development that can occur, and you were able to safely get out, but you thought, oh, I've got time to go back in and do whatever it is you feel you have to go back in for, and this time you're not going to be able to get out. So don't ever make the mistake of trying to re-enter the building. Should you become trapped, all right, this is where we have to have some kind of pre-plan in our head of a situational awareness of what we're going to do. Step one, try and stay calm, all right? Obviously, that's going to be tough to do in a fire situation. Most of you probably never experienced that. Clearly, it's going to be unnerving, but you have to try and stay calm and kind of think through, what do I have to do here to survive? Closed doors, all right? So that gets to compartmentation, all right? The best thing you can do if you can't get out of a space is to put doors between you and the fire, all right? So if the fire's even in the next room, if you can get into a room, close the door, that door now becomes a barrier to fire spread. And that's going to buy you a certain amount of time for you to survive the space and to wait for help to arrive if you can't get out. You don't want to try and hide somewhere. That makes it more difficult for emergency service people to find you. There's plenty of stories, again, over the years of people trying to hide in closets. Sometimes people try to go into a bathroom and fill the bathtub with water, all different kinds of things that people think are going to protect them, and that's not going to be the case. The best thing you can do is close the door, put door between you and the fire, go to a window, stay low to the floor, keep your head down around the windowsill level, open the window and yell out for help and wait for help. You can stay in the space as long as you feel you can comfortably do it. And, you know, should it get to the point where you can't stay in the space anymore because the conditions are becoming untenable, then your next option, if you're, you know, say only on the second floor or something, is to hang from the window and drop to the ground if you have to get out of the space. But up until that point, wait at the window and call for help. Today, we all have cell phones, and I know for myself, at night, I put my cell phone on charge on my nightstand, and my cell phone's always next to my bed. All right? If you don't keep your cell phone near your bed at night, I would suggest that you do it, because it's a great way to make contact with emergency service should there be a fire or some type of emergency in your house. If you become trapped and you can't get out, same thing, all right? You can call 911 and you can say, you know, I'm trapped, I'm on the second floor, I'm in the front of the house, I'm in the rear of the house. Now when the emergency services get on the scene, they have some idea where to start searching for you. So a good suggestion, if you don't sleep with the cell phone next to your bed, it's a good thing to do, because it's a great way to communicate to emergency services should it become necessary. When you call 911, all right, your location comes up on the screen immediately. So if you call in a landline, if you still have a landline in your home, as soon as you dial 911, the address of your home is going to come up on the screen in the dispatch center. If you call on your cell phone, the cell towers triangulate your location, and it'll give an approximate location of where you are. It's not going to say the exact address, but it's going to get emergency services in the right neighborhood. All right, so either way, even if you can't verbally communicate over the telephone, your information, or enough information, is being given to the dispatcher that they're going to be able to locate where you're at. All right, so we talked about compartmentation. Closed doors, best protection if you're trapped in a fire. They slow the spread of heat and smoke. The other thing that happens, all right, so understand that a fire needs three things to sustain itself: fuel, heat, and oxygen. If you close a door, all right, you're going to limit the fire's ability to develop and become bigger. Because what's going to happen is once the space is compartmentized, it's going to consume the oxygen in the space. It needs more to sustain itself, and if it can't get enough oxygen, it's going to start to go into what they call a smoldering stage. So you're actually preventing the fire from developing when you can compartmentize the space. And then again, by closing the door, you're giving yourself a survivable space, because you're putting a barrier between you and the fire. I just want to talk real quick, and then we're going to show this last video and wrap it up. Doors and different doors. There's such a thing called a fire door. You generally will not see fire doors in your home, with the exception of the door between an attached garage and the interior of a home. That door most likely is some type of fire door in a newer house. If you're in an older house, it might be you know, an older version of what they would have considered a fire door back when the home was built. but it probably doesn't meet the standard of a fire door that we would know today. But in either case, the door has probably got a pretty good rating in terms of being able to separate the attached garage from the living space in case of a fire. All right. In commercial spaces, business spaces, here at Kane, for example, there's fire doors all over the place. They're actually rated, and the door frame and the door itself are rated to resist fire for a given period of time, anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours. All right. Even if the door doesn't have a rating, it's still going to obviously resist fire for a period of time. It's just never been tested to find out how long that time would be. So even if you had a real inexpensive Luan door in your home, and those are the real light ones, and there's really no substance to them, they're not solid, those doors will resist some amount of fire for probably 5 to 10 minutes before they'll start to fail at the top. Usually the doors will fail at the top first. If you have a solid door in your home on your bedroom door, those doors may last 15 minutes or better. All right, so they are going to give separation, and they are going to provide protection even if they're not rated fire doors. All right, so the last video I have here is a video that illustrates this concept about compartmentation. So what we're going to see here is a fire, and what I want you to notice here is when they light this fire, the room that has the least damage, which is the compartmentized space, is actually the one that's farthest from where the fire started, or closest to where the fire started, I'm sorry. The room farthest from where the fire started has more damage than the one that's closest to the fire because the door was closed.
It was a devastating scenario, a sleeping family and a raging fire. Ronald, Hope, Dominic, Autumn, Serenity, and Victoria all lost their lives inside this home in McKeesport.
I just wish this all could go away and they could be back.
In the United States, someone dies in a house fire every 2 hours and 42 minutes. Most fatal fires happen in the middle of the night while you're sleeping. In a fire, it's not the flames, but the toxic smoke that will get you.
One breath is all it will take, and it will kill you.
But a simple move can keep that deadly smoke at bay.
If you want to survive a fire that happens in the middle of the night,
Sleep with your door closed.
You guys attack the living room. That's where the fire's starting.
Chief Mark Stowe is with the Beaver Falls Fire Department. With the help of his firefighters and a crew from the Chippewa Fire Department,
Everybody walk through it.
we're going to set this house on fire to show you firsthand how a closed bedroom door can save your life.
so let me give you a little tour of the house and the scenario. This is the living room. The fire is going to start right here in a trash can. Right off of the living room is the master bedroom. We're going to leave this bedroom door closed, and then up the hall, follow me this way. This is what we're calling the kids' bedroom, and in this room, we're leaving this door open.
And we set up 7 cameras so you can see exactly what happens in each room as this fire burns. It doesn't take long for the smoke alarm to go off. 1 minute into the fire, smoke is gathering at the ceiling. It starts to trickle into the kids' bedroom. At 2 minutes, the smoke is pressing down even harder in the living room and in that bedroom with the open door. But in the master bedroom, take a look. You can see the orange glow of the fire at the bottom of the door, but no smoke is getting into this room. Back in the living room, at 3 minutes, the fire is raging. The room goes black. Flames race down the hallway. Debris begins to fall from the ceiling. And in the kids' room, smoke consumes the room. The bed and cradle disappear into darkness. Take a look again at the master bedroom. Even with the fire raging right outside the door, there's no sign of smoke in here.
Yeah, let's knock it down.
At this point, firefighters put out the blaze. Chief Stowe walks us through the aftermath.
You can see this room you would have never survived. If there were children in this room or anybody in this room, The temperatures at the ceiling in this room would have been over 1,000 degrees.
My eyes are burning just being in here.
Taking a look around the room, you can see the smoke damage in every corner.
Nobody would have survived this.
No, you would have not survived this room. No, not with the door open.
But up the hallway, in that master bedroom with the door closed, it's a vastly different story.
This door is totally charred.
Totally charred, as
But
you can
on the
see.
inside, wow.
On the inside, as you can see, there is literally no smoke or heat damage to this room.
Take a look. The bedspread is still white, the wallpaper is clean,
Wow.
the inside of the bedroom door and the mirror are untouched.
So this room was survivable.
This room was survivable.
All it took was closing the door.
It's going to save your life.
It will save your life.
Okay, so you can see the benefit of closing the door and compartmentizing the space. Obviously, a tremendous difference between the room with the door closed, which was actually further away from the fire, and the door with the, or the closest to the fire, and the door with the room with the door open was furthest from the fire, and that had a significant amount of smoke and heat damage. So compartmentation is important. It's your best friend if you can't get out of the space safely. And that's really all you need to do is keep the door closed. Should a fire start in your space and you're able to escape it, still close the door, because you're going to limit the damage to the building because the fire is not going to be able to spread to other parts of it. All right, so even when you can get out, if you can close doors and compartmentize, that's a good thing to do. And you don't want to leave the front door open. Either pull the front door shut, because if you leave the front door open and you have a fire in the house, it's just like your fireplace in the winter. All of the, as you know, when you burn your fireplace in the winter, you draw all the heat out of your house because it's all being pulled up the chimney. Same thing with the fire in the house. You leave the front door open, you're pulling all of the fresh air in from outside, and the fire's doing that, and that's going to allow the fire to develop. It's looking for oxygen, and you gave it what we call a flow path to allow it to develop. So by cutting all of those off, closing doors and compartmentizing, you're limiting the fire's ability to grow and to spread. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Mm-hmm. All right. All right. So in this specific instance, all right, we knew when that alarm activated today what the cause was. There's a problem with the smoke detector downstairs in the speech clinic. Right. Right. So in this particular incident, we knew as soon as it came in what it was, because I had been over there working on that prior to. All right, so there wasn't even a fire department response for that incident. There was Kane PD responded, but we knew that we had a problem with that detector. Now, just as an additional information and why we knew specifically, when the alarms come in on Kane, the detectors that are on campus for the most part are what they call smart detectors. So they actually tell the Kane PD dispatcher exactly what the location of the alarm is. So when it came in, and it was, I believe it's room 37 in the speech clinic, I knew exactly what it was because I had just worked on the detector an hour before that. So in that case, we knew that we didn't have an emergency, we had a problem detector. Had there been a problem in the building, okay, you have to understand that in not all cases are we going to be able to have staff come immediately to you. All right, so if you need to be evacuated, all right, you have to be able to contact PD and advise them, Kane PD, and advise them you need assistance leaving the building. There's just not enough staff available to dedicate somebody to do that. If you need assistance, then the best thing to do is work out a plan with the people in your workspace and have them assist you get out. If you're by yourself, then what you have to do is call the dispatcher and just advise them that you're there and you need assistance. Because we have that record that you're there, and I did get your email. But again, it's very possible that you're not in that day, and we may not have the resources immediately available to get to your space. The first thing that we do when we get on scene is we're investigating the source of the alarm. And then if we need to assist with evacuation, that's going to be the next step, or we're going to wait for the, in your case, the Hillside Fire Department to get on scene and assist you that way. Okay? Yes, sir. Yep. All right. So by code, fire doors are supposed to be closed all the time. So if you see a door in a stairwell, it's supposed to be on a closer, and the door's supposed to be closed at all times. Because stairwells, when they're built, the stairwell itself is fire rated, meaning that if you get into that space, no smoke or fire should be able to travel into it because of the fire doors. The door you're referring to has a magnetic closer on it, and the reason for that is, and I'm sure everybody's seen it, a lot of the doors on campus get chocked open because with a wooden stop to hold the door open, because they want airflow, it's too hot, or people are moving equipment up and down the stairs and they put something under the door to hold it open. So in order to eliminate that problem with keeping fire doors closed at all times, they put a magnetic closer, a magnetic holder on the door, and that is hooked to the fire alarm system. When the fire alarm activates, the magnet demagnetizes and the door swings shut. And so, that's why that's there. And that's a problem in any type of office building. Constant problem with doors being chocked open because it's too hot, it's too cold, whatever. And the fix for that is to put a magnetic closer on the fire door so that you can keep it open at all times, and it'll close if the fire alarm system activates. Anything else? Yes, sir. Okay, so it's a good question. His question is, you have a fire in the basement and your detector is in the hallway upstairs, and by the time the smoke makes the detector in the hallway upstairs, maybe it's too late. Okay, so first of all, as I said at the beginning, you should ideally have one detector on each level of the home, basement, first floor, second floor, however many levels. And if they're battery detectors, they're not interconnected, what they call interconnected hardwired detectors, so they don't all ring simultaneously. So in this gentleman's example, if there's a detector in the basement, that detector will go off as soon as it senses the fire, but it won't ring the other detectors on the upper floor. If he doesn't have a detector in the basement, he only has one upstairs, then that's not going to go off till the smoke makes the second floor detector and activates. Okay, so first of all, the best thing to do is have interconnected detectors. You can, in a residential setting, you can have an electrician put a hardwired interconnected smoke detection system in so that when one detector activates, they all ring. All right, and then the other thing that you should do, again, is make sure that you keep your basement door closed all the time so that if a fire does start in the basement, it's not going to be able to follow the stairwells and extend to the second floor very easily because the basement's going to be compartmentized. The drawback to that is going to be that if you only have a detector on the second floor, it's going to be delayed in going off. If you have a detector in the basement and it's not interconnected, it'll go off, but if you're on an upper floor, maybe you don't hear it right away. So there's a drawback to your scenario there, but ideally, you still want to keep the basement door closed, keep the space compartmentized, because that's going to be your best protection, and then try and have interconnected detectors so that the detector in the basement, when it activates, it automatically rings the detectors on the upper floor, and you get an immediate notification. Right. Okay. If you send me an email, all right, or call my office in Downs Hall, I can come over and provide that instruction for you. Those chairs are very easy to use, and you'll be surprised. One person can evacuate somebody in that chair. They're not hard to use. Right, because it's designed to. There's rollers for the wheels, and it's designed to go downstairs, but it's easy to use. I recently did over the last break, Christmas break, I did maintenance on them just to check them all out because they hadn't been looked at in a while, and lubricated them and just made sure they're all working properly. But I can come provide that training for you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I want to bring out Lieutenant Mike Gorman from Kane PD.
Thank you, Len. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Lieutenant Mike Gorman from the Kane Police Department. I'm sure most of you know me already because I've been here for like 100 years. At least it feels that way. I know we're short on time, so I'm going to kind of keep this as brief as possible, but luckily for me, there's not a lot of new concept in the active shooter situation. It still continues. It continues to grow as far as how often we're seeing it. Have most of you been through the active shooter program before? No, not at all. Okay, great. Except for Ken. Okay. So I'm gonna squeeze in a real quick video that gives you some ideas. Some of you, like Ken, may have seen it before. That really gives you options as to what to do in an active shooter situation. We've all been taught, or at least we have children that are taught these days in elementary schools and high schools, middle schools, that your only option is to lock down. Lock yourself in a room, turn off the lights, barricade the door, and that is a viable option. That option does work, but is not your only option and should not be your first option. That works because we're dealing with children who cannot make decisions for themselves, what's best, what's not best. It works for them. In our environment, we can think for ourselves and should think for ourselves. And your first, as human beings, your first instinct is to get away from a dangerous situation. And that should always be your first option. If you can get out, please do so. I should be the only idiot running in. You should all be passing me, thanking God you're not me. So get out if you at all possibly can. If you cannot get out, then your second option would be to lock yourself in, hide. And of course, third is fight for your life. The video we're going to show you has all three of those options in separate settings. Work environment, believe it or not, a college environment as well. But I want you to kind of look at it from a different perspective than we've taught before. And it's a concept that Len usually speaks about is situational awareness. You know, the truth of it is that we cannot stop this phenomenon, if you will, of active shooter from happening. It happens, we can respond to it, we can train for it, but there's no way to 100% totally prevent it. But what we can do is prepare ourselves for it in a way of situational awareness, knowing your own personal environment. You know, I try to explain to people that I, as well as all law enforcement officers, are trained in certain clues, certain things that are going to look strange to us, that's going to initiate more investigation, such as, just off the top of my head, on a warm summer day, someone walks into your office in a long trench coat and gloves. Maybe that's something that piques your interest. It certainly does for me. Little things like that that I'm trained to notice that maybe you don't. On the reverse side of that is I can walk into your office and not know that something is strange because it doesn't appear strange to me. You know what's normal for your area. You know your students, you know your colleagues, you know your bosses, your professors. I don't. You know their normal tics, how they work. When that is not right, you would recognize that from knowing this person all the time, knowing how they react, knowing what they bring to work every day, whatever the case may be. Those are those preemptive things that you would know about that I wouldn't, that I need to know about. So we ask you to kind of look at these things from a proactive standpoint, and you'll see that in the video, how maybe the people around the person that's acting out could have prevented the situation had they alerted to somebody that this guy or girl isn't quite right today, maybe something's up. And those are the things we kind of ask you to be proactive with us and help us to understand what's going on in your particular area. I kind of say, when those little hairs on the back of your neck stick up because something just doesn't feel right to you, let us know. It may be nothing, and so far, 100% of the time here on the campus, it has been nothing. But we don't know when that one time is going to be that it is something, and we'd rather be there beforehand. So I'm going to let you take a look at this video real quick, and be mindful and think of it from the perspective of, if you were there, would you have picked up on some of these clues that this person isn't acting right? Would you have had the presence of mind to say, you know what, maybe I should call somebody because this may get out of hand? And kind of think to yourselves how you can apply that here in your work environment, in your school environment, to help prevent something like this, hopefully, from happening, should it come to that. So let's take a quick look here.
A morning that began like any other turned tragic today when an employee opened fire on his supervisor and fellow coworkers.
Students, parents, teachers are asking why today, after a bloody rampage, plunged this campus into tragedy.
Details are just coming in, but we're being told that a heavily armed gunman opened fire this evening at the mall food court behind me. There's no official word on any casualties yet, but one eyewitness reported seeing at least 6 people shot.
Active shooter. A gunman or gunmen killing or attempting to kill people in a confined, populated area.
You gotta get some sleep. You're looking like a vampire.
You sleep. You ain't got no babies at home keeping you up.
What the hell? Them again.
We've tried. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to let you go.
Active shooter killings are a tragic, unpredictable reality, and one that's becoming more common.
Since 2006, the U.S. has averaged an active shooter event with 4 or more deaths every 2.9 months.
Even though the number of active shooter events has been increasing, your odds of being involved in one are still very slim. But just like fire drills and earthquake preparedness, making a plan in advance can make all the difference.
Yeah, but lizards live in tanks. I mean, it's probably fine.
Shh. If you do find yourself in the middle of a senseless attack, the why doesn't matter.
Hey. Hey, buddy.
Something's happening.
What matters is surviving.
On average, 20 mass shootings take place in the U.S. every year.
Killers usually choose their victims at random. They look for easy targets. So the harder you are to see or to hit, the safer you are. When an attack starts, if you can find a way out of the location, do so.
Get out.
If you stay calm and think clearly, even in the middle of a life and death event, you improve your chances of making it out. Visualize your movements in advance.
What are we gonna do?
Look at me. Get us out. Stay behind me. Stay now.
Use cover, something that will stop a bullet, and concealment, something that at least keeps you out of sight.
Attention South LA units, code 3 response needed regarding a 245 DSV 417. To be at the Town Center shopping mall. Suspects wearing a face mask, possible body armor.
Use any available means to get out, including emergency exits or windows. Most restaurants and retail locations will also have exits in the back through kitchens or stock rooms. Even in the best cases, police are minutes, not seconds away. You must take action to protect yourself.
Okay, everybody stay calm. It's probably just a drill.
No, go back, go back.
Oh my god, come here.
If you can help others without putting yourself in unnecessary danger,
It's gonna be okay.
do so.
It's gonna be okay. What's your name?
Lori.
It's gonna be okay.
If you can't move safely to an exit, get to a room or a confined area you can lock down. Then secure the location.
Secure your location.
Oh my god.
There's somebody shooting.
Everybody stay calm. Remember how we train. Everybody get in this corner, away from the windows. Get the emergency bag from my desk. Help her.
Drywall won't stop a bullet, but there are steps to take to stay safe. Lock or barricade the doors, turn off the lights, move away from any windows, and silence your cell phone.
The other door doesn't lock. Move desks or anything, just block it.
A modern emergency bag can include a first aid kit, gloves, emergency plans for the building, and casualty cards to alert first responders to any wounded victims.
Most active shooter situations are over in 10 to 15 minutes.
Attention Lakeville units, code 3 is needed at 245 GSV 417. It's going to be at Alexandria College. Multiple victims down.
Law enforcement's first responsibility when entering an active shooter situation is to stop the suspect, not to render aid to the victims. Medical teams will enter the scene as soon as the suspect is no longer a threat or is confirmed in another location. Silence any cell phones and remain quiet. Do not alert the shooter to your presence.
Sheriff's Department, is there anyone inside?
Red card.
Just hang tight. We'll be back to get you.
Defend yourself.
If you cannot escape the location and you can't shelter in place, you may have to defend yourself as a last resort. Almost anything can be turned into an improvised weapon. Look for something that can disrupt the shooter's ability to see, breathe, or control their weapon. When law enforcement arrives, they are going to be in a heightened state of readiness and awareness, looking for any aggressive movements. So keep your hands visible and follow any commands you are given.
He's a shooter.
What happened? What happened?
Oh, there's just a shooter. I just saw one shooter.
Especially in developing situations, engaging law enforcement, running toward them, reaching for them, even to thank them, could put people at risk.
Surviving an active shooter.
Anybody injured?
For more information,
Okay, so there's a little brief overview of how things can develop, how quickly they can develop, how important it is to have that situational awareness, know what's going on around you. Here in that college setting, the shooter actually had to tap somebody on the shoulder for them to realize they're about to be shot. How many of us find ourselves doing the same thing every day in our cell phones, doing whatever it is that we do, not paying attention to what's happening around us? We're very lucky here at the university to have our own sworn state police department right here. You know, they talk about minutes before the police can arrive. We here on the campus can be anywhere in an emergency situation within 90 seconds. 90 seconds will seem like an eternity to you if you're in a situation like this waiting for us to show up. But I assure you that 90 seconds is probably the quickest response time any of you will ever see in any of your hometown police departments. We're that lucky to have that luxury here. But again, be mindful of the fact that no matter how many of us there are, we could have 100 police officers on the campus. We cannot be everywhere in every situation at all times. And even if we were, we again don't know the clues for your area to be able to react quickly. I could walk right past an active shooter in your particular area and not be clued into who he is or she is if she's about to commit this type of crime. Why we ask for your help. Your knowledge, your understanding of your area can really prevent a lot of this. Please, I get all the time, yeah, this person was acting strange, but I didn't want to bother you guys. I know you're busy. That's why we're here. Please bother us. I would much rather come and speak to somebody and have it turn out to be nothing than for it to develop into something like this. I will never, nor will any of my staff, ever scold you, give you a hard time. What did you bother me with this for? This was nothing. That's not how this works. In this day and age, these things are getting more and more up front, in our faces. We need to be mindful, and we all need to partner together to be able to stop this type of thing from happening, or at least respond quickly to it so that it doesn't evolve into something much more than it could have been. There's a lot more. I could talk to you for the next several hours about this, but I understand we're short on time. Can I answer any particular questions for anyone individually? Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, they don't consult us and or active shooter type situations when they design buildings. So we have to kind of react to what they give us. And as you know, every building on the campus is different. And unfortunately for all of our faculty, our staff, our students, they're not in the same room every day. So you have to kind of be cognizant of your surroundings every given time, because every classroom's different, every building's different. Some doors lock, some doors don't. A lot of our classrooms, and especially in our more modern buildings, you walk into the room, the lights miraculously come on. This is great. I don't even have to flip a switch. That's wonderful. But those lights are on motion sensors. They don't shut off until after they do no longer detect motion in the room, and you don't have the ability to shut off lights. You may not have the ability to lock doors. And you know, when an active shooter situation is happening is not the time to think about that. That's why we talk about the pre-planning, the thought process beforehand. Okay, if something happens in here, what am I going to do? Let me look real quick. What are my options? And there are times where you're not going to have many options. As you suggested, that depending on where that active shooter is, where things are going on in the building, you may have forewarning that it's going on a different floor, I have enough time to get out. But if that person just happens to be outside your door, outside that window, and has direct line of sight with you, what are your options in that case? Yes, you can. If you can lock the doors in your room, great. If you can hide behind something, great. If you can't, and that person has no choice, but he's coming into that room, you have your fight option. And yes, when you speak about throwing things at the shooter, be mindful. I know we don't have a lot of time, but be mindful that when I encourage you to engage that shooter when you have no other option. You know, many people come to me and they say, that's real easy for you to say, Mr. Police Officer with a gun and a bulletproof vest, that you're going to fight this person coming through the door. But here's this 6'6", 400-pound linebacker with a gun coming through the door, and I'm, 5'2", 100 pounds soaking wet. How do you expect me to fight that person? That's suicide. That shooter's coming through the door for one purpose. We know that. So you have, honestly, nothing to lose, first of all. But secondly, what I give to people to empower them is I am not asking you to fight them on a physical level. This is a psychological level. The active shooter is coming into that room with a very tunnel vision mindset. They know what they expect you to do when they come through the door, and that's cower in the corner and beg for your life. Empowering them, which is what they want. When they come through that door and you do not act as they expect you to act, you have completely messed the mindset up of that person, and you have bought yourself time while they're trying to figure out what's going on. You're not acting as you should. Maybe they come through the door and you just happen to hit them with a chair. You may not knock them out, you may not kill them, you may not take the gun away from them, but you have completely messed up that person's mental mindset that you may have bought yourself the amount of time you needed to get past him and get out. Or you have stunned him to the point that statistics will tell you that active shooters, 99.8% of the time, is a lone, single male shooter. So if you go into this knowing that you have one assailant at that door, 9 times out of 10, there's more than one of you in the room. Can we all together subdue that person? Probably, especially when they're in a stunned mindset. Now, I'm not asking anybody to be superheroes. I'm not asking you to, get the person in the figure 4 leg lock, tie him up, and hang him from a tree until I get there. I'm just asking you to buy yourself enough time to survive until I get there. Remember, that's 90 seconds. That's not a lot of time for you to have to survive. That will work. That has worked to the point in the past where that shooter gets hit, whatever, yelling, screaming, hit with a fire extinguisher, thrown a chair at them, to the point that the shooter actually says, you know what, these people are crazy. There's an easier target for me someplace else. I'm not dealing with these people. And again, you have survived. Remember, the mindset of that shooter is to do as much possible damage as they can in the shortest amount of time. They know I'm coming. They know once I get there, it's going to be all over. Sometimes they will even do research. They will do tests. They'll pull fire alarms. They'll call in false reports and be in the area to monitor how long does it take the police to get there, so that when I actually conduct my act, I know about how much time I have to get it done. They will know, if they do that, that they have 90 seconds, not a lot of time. Especially in the CAS building, as you indicated. There's a lot of people in that building. all over the building, all times of the day and night. So when that person gets there, they know they have 90 seconds to get this done. They come to your room, they don't see anybody in there, they can't access the door, maybe they can, and people are acting not as that person thought they would. By the time they figured that out, their 90 seconds is up. They've accomplished nothing. So when they encounter things like that, their mindset is to move on to an easier target so I can accomplish my goal before I get stopped. So even though they may know you're in the room, if that door's locked or blocked, I'm not going to waste my time. I know there's plenty more people in this building. I'm going to move on to something easier. So those things do work, and you don't have to be that overpowering person. It's just a psychological situation that you can put yourself in to buy yourself time. So there are many different options when you think of it that way that can completely screw that person up in enough time to save your life. Sorry, that was a very long answer. So, was there another quick question? I know we're over time now. Yes, sir. Right. So probably I'm going to say the vast majority of the buildings on campus, the first floor windows do not open. They're not required to open. And again, it's safety minded as far as people breaking in, not as opposed to thinking of people trying to get out. I promise you, I give you my word, I'll give you my card, I will not charge you with criminal mischief if you happen to break that window trying to get out in an active shooter situation. That would be an option. But again, be mindful because people tend to, again, lose that situational awareness and think, okay, I can't get out this door, I'm going out the window. And again, we move from building to building to building, we have class and room to room to room. Active shooter, can't get out the door, I'm going for the window. Oh crap. I'm on the 4th floor of CAS. Maybe that's not such a good idea. I don't have a cape in my back pocket. 40, 50 feet is probably not going to be a good option. And now we're locked in because we didn't think about choice C, or what my backup plan to my backup plan is. So there's always the viability of breaking out a window, if need be. Not necessarily the easiest thing, because again, they're designed not to allow people to break in, but if need be, it can be done. And if for whatever reason it can't be done, again, remember, what are my better options? What else can I do if I can't get through that window? Obviously, we can't practice breaking out the windows in our buildings, but if I can't, what would be my next viable option? So it's really kind of up to you and how you feel when you enter that room to scan it. What can I do? Can I pick something up? Is there something big enough or heavy enough that I can break the window out if I need to? Most of the windows that do open, as you said, are not like your household window that you could just climb out of. So some people may physically not have the stature to be able to fit out of those windows that do open partially. So what are my options there? Can I break the window out further to allow better access? But that's the pre-planning that kind of goes into it that you got to think about ahead of schedule. Yes, ma'am. Yes. And please do. Yes. As a society, we tend to want to mind our own business. We don't want to take that step, or we think to ourselves, somebody else will call, I'm going to go about my day. And as we just seen this week in the news, these things happen all the time. We're lucky, again, to be at the forefront of that, and we have our own K-9 unit on the campus. So things of that nature no longer, for us, require a complete building evacuation, disrupt everybody's day. Now when a situation like that comes in, and I would assume it happened this way when you contacted us, is we bring our dog in. Our canine unit comes in without anybody even knowing what's happening. Walks through, the dog is trained to pick up on certain elements that are utilized in making a bomb. The dog walks by, does not alert. We know it's not a bomb. We can look into it, find out what it is, see you later. The whole situation's cleared up within 5 to 10 minutes. Now, the flip side of that is within that time frame, we will also know if it is a bomb, and we will then initiate evacuations and so on and so forth, bringing in mitigation to take the bomb out. We're lucky to have that. We're one of 3 universities in the state that actually have that option. So again, we kind of had the forefront of knowing these things beforehand. How is this going to evolve? How's the active shooter thing going to evolve? What's the next step? We figured and we realized that the new trend, if you will, were these suspicious packages. And unfortunately, in a college environment, as this young lady said, people leave backpacks everywhere. For us, a backpack sitting on a chair or at a desk is commonplace. It happens 10 times a day, and nobody thinks twice about that. Whereas if you're in a train station or a mall, that's like red flags everywhere. So people tend here to look at a backpack and say, somebody left their books behind, no big deal. But again, we can't be that complacent anymore, unfortunately. We have to take those steps to look into those things, and again, why we ask for your help. You know if that's your coworker's backpack. I would not know that. You would know if that, nobody in my office carries a backpack, where did that come from? Maybe I should call somebody. So again, yes, be vigilant and be mindful, and don't ever hesitate to, well, maybe I should call, maybe I shouldn't call. If there's a thought, call. That's why we're here. Any other questions, concerns? Yes. Again, that for handicapped people would be no different than a non-handicapped person. Personal situational awareness. If you know you are confined to needing assistance, whether it be through a wheelchair, a cane, crutches, maybe visually impaired, hearing impaired, be mindful of that before you get yourself into an environment, and what conditions do you need to get out quickly. It may be easy for you or the person next to you to jump up on the stage and get out the back door. It may not be so easy for somebody who may be confined to a wheelchair. So what do you need? What accommodations do you need to get out of that room? And think of that ahead of schedule, so that when that does happen, whether it be an active shooter, a fire, you'll have a plan for yourself that you can maybe even share with your professor, your colleagues, us in the police department, fire safety, ahead of schedule, so that we know where you are and what accommodations you need. And we certainly work with that. We actually, Len can speak a little bit better. We actually have a program where people with disabilities can optionally alert us beforehand of where they are, what offices they're in, so that when we respond to that building for whatever the reason is, I know there's somebody on the 4th floor, room 407, who needs special attention in getting out. It's a voluntary thing that people can let us know about, so that no matter what reason we go to the building, we know that person is there. So we can accommodate that as well. Did that kind of answer your question? But for everybody, that's going to be different, whether they're handicapped or not. Everybody has certain limitations that we have to be mindful of. And the individual has to be mindful of and kind of take steps to make a plan for themselves that works. Not every plan is going to work for everybody. And we certainly will come out to any of your areas, any of your offices, your classes, wherever you may be, and kind of customize this program to where you are or what your specific needs are. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us and say, hey, can you come out to CAS and give us a little bit of a customized program as to what we should do on this floor? Absolutely. Call me. I would love to come out and talk to you. It's all about making that plan ahead of schedule, and we want to be part of that. So please don't hesitate to call us, whether it's active shooter or anything else. You know, this is that community relations that unfortunately we don't have in our society anymore, where the police and the society don't get together and realize we're all together on this. There's too much distance between us. And these are the kind of things that we have the opportunity to do, that we have the ability to show people we're not as bad as maybe the media portrays us to be. Let us help you. Any other questions? I know we're way over time limit, and they're about to, big hook's going to come out here in a second and pull me off. There's the hook. Again, folks, thank you for coming out. Any questions, concerns, thoughts, don't be afraid to call me. My number's 911. I'm here about 5 to 10 hours a day past my regular schedule, so I'm never not here if you need anything. Don't be afraid to call us, all right? Thank you very much, everybody. Be safe.